Welcome to the next section here. We're going to talk about navigating the twists and turns of the e-commerce customer journey. And I'm going to hand it over here to Maggie Barnett, who is the CEO of LVK, and Manny Rubianes, who is the operation leader. And I give it all over to you guys. Please feel free to start.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bjorn.
Okay, thank you everyone for being here today. This is so exciting. We're in silent disco, Manny.
I'm pumped. This is my first time in a silent disco. So
well, you already look very natural.
Oh, sweet.
This is working for us. I like it. I like it. Thank you all for coming today. We are here to talk about the twists and turns of the customer journey. Because when it comes to e-commerce, it is different. You have to think about your customers differently. So to set the stage, I'm Maggie Barnett, CEO of LVK. And what we do at LVK is we are best in class 3PL. What does that mean? We create bespoke solutions for exemplary companies. So we don't want to work with everyone. And this is why I brought Manny with me today, because the solutions that we created together are so bespoke. And it's really exciting to get to talk about things like that. Because many times people think of a 3PL, they think of, it's a commodity business, cheapest. We don't want that at LVK. We try to really go deep with our customers, understand their goals, and work with them to achieve those goals. So that's a little bit about me. So
yeah, my name is Manny, and I've been waiting for 5 years to be on the stage with Maggie because she was pivotal in our growth at a former company I worked at for 4 years, and then also now continuing on another startup that we're partnering on. So just amazing experience. We'll talk about some of the things that I think were nuanced in the space that are important as you think about e-commerce, as you think about customer journey, as you think about brand building, and everything in terms of boiling down to customer experience and providing that best-in-class experience for your customers. We have patients because we're in the medical space, but if you're dealing with with patients or customers, it's all the same. And fortunately, we've had a great partner with Maggie, LVK, and Ship Hero. So.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's what's great about Manny is that he's a two-time customer. Not only did he scale his first company that then was purchased, that was acquired, but now came back with Daybreak. So we're going to be talking about that today. So should we get into it, Manny?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So that's what we're doing today. That's us. Okay. So what is different? So right now, many people, when I go to work every day, again, 3PL's commodity business, people always say, hey, we're not saving lives. But guess what? With Manny, we are. That's what's so exciting about what you do at Daybreak. But could you tell us why medical device? How did you get started, even with Byte? And maybe give a little bit of background with the Byte product.
Of course, yeah. So I worked with a company called Byte, and we basically did clear aligner therapy at home. And so a little bit of a niche space where you had to have 510K, FDA, you had to have ISO certification and a lot of different components of your journey. And so our goal was to support individuals through a telehealth experience and be able to deliver a exemplary experience from being able to potentially talk with a doctor or a dentist, getting treated, and then actually having great customer experience on the back end where you get your therapy done. And if you aren't familiar with clear aligner braces, they're basically like Invisalign, so everybody knows that branded name. And Byte was basically a product of that.
Which is fantastic. And then, so Byte, how many years did that take? We worked together. We've been working together for 5 years, like Manny said. But that was about a 3-year journey, 3.5?
Yeah, so it was we just launched in late 2018 and were acquired in 2020. So pretty big growth, which we'll talk about the scale and what, Ship Your LVK allowed us to do. And it was about a 2-year turnaround in terms of acquisition, but then even post-acquisition, it's funny because you get acquired by a large publicly traded company and they have all these enterprise solutions that they say are going to come in and reduce costs and make it easier for your company. It didn't. They still use LVK today for a lot of the fulfillment and 3PL solutions, which is interesting to think about when we got acquired by, it was like a $7 billion cap company at the time. So we'll dive in a little bit more about, the solutions that are sometimes hard to disrupt when you have a really innovative partner.
Exactly. Excellent. Then we're going to walk through the customer journey and how that's different with Daybreak. And then we'll go through, Monday morning quarterback, even though it's a Thursday, and talk about the things we could have done differently.
It's my favorite.
All right, let's do it. Okay. Sleep apnea.
Yes, this is, so I transitioned from Byte, and we talked about what we did there, which is we're changing people's lives one smile at a time. Really enjoyed the work. And for me, it was important as I left Byte to find another mission-driven company. So we, some of the founders left and started a sleep apnea company. So this is similar, where we're treating people from the convenience of their home. Why it's important and why, you know, I'm very invested in this is it's impacting a lot of people, 1 billion people worldwide, 25 people in the US alone. And of those people, 80% are undiagnosed. You may have actually recently watched the Apple keynote, and they highlighted this on one of their keynotes and spent about a minute and a half covering sleep apnea. And their new devices are actually going to be detecting whether or not you may have sleep apnea, and to talk with your physician. And so that's really cool to be able to see people that are of that magnitude speaking on the space in general, and just showing like, yeah, a lot of people are, you know, are suffering, and we want to be able to support those people. So in the medical space, obviously really important to be able to provide them with, you know, quick service, but also like HIPAA compliance is really key. And so being able to work with a partner that has FDA clearance is really important to us, and provides, you know, protection for all the data encryption end to end. And LVK does a great job of that.
Yeah, being SOC 2 compliant and all the encryption is so important. We have other customers when we first started at LVK, we thought, oh, we can just throw t-shirts in a bag. And we realized, well, everyone can do that. That's not very special. Why are we going to keep doing that? So getting to work through these processes has been super impactful for our business, and a lot more fun, to be quite honest, because
it's always fun when there's a challenge in place. And both with Byte and with Daybreak, there are different challenges whenever you're doing within the medical space and it's at home, and you think about, you're really disrupting a space, right? If you're trying to stand out and you're creating a moat around your business, you want to be able to create enough, you know, barriers to entry to where like you have a little bit of protection, where you created this really cool nuanced experience that has maybe some, you know, data layers, and maybe it has some labor involved. And you have to kind of figure out where your core competencies are and where you want to like double click and invest, and where you want to maybe outsource. We'll talk a little bit about that later as well too.
It's fantastic. And this is, if you haven't taken a sleep apnea test, like just take it. If you've ever woken yourself up snoring, or your partner snores, like, I'm getting it for everyone. Like it is a gift that keeps on giving, because you're giving health, and it's something super easy to do and take it home. You don't even have to make that first appointment. It just shows up in your mail.
Yeah. And like that was part of the convenience of it, is we wanted to be able to deliver sleep tests at home for people. Many people that, you know, get diagnosed and know they have a problem, because it is life threatening. You see all the challenges on the slide here, where, you know, it's hypertension, comorbidities across the board, all cause mortality, 2x increase. But with the innovation that's been out there in the space, a lot of people, you know, haven't taken advantage of the at-home sleep tests. And so we partnered with a group that creates at-home sleep tests. And then obviously with the fulfillment side of being able to do that at scale was really important to us. We did something similar at Byte. And so being able to deliver at-home sleep tests for a really affordable rate, where people before, you had to take day off work, go into a lab, find a sleep doctor, $1,000, stay overnight, maybe 2 nights. This is done at the convenience of your home. And it was, you know, a really, I'll say, game changer for us to be able to provide that. And we knew with the partners that we had before, we can do the fulfillment and at scale continue to grow, which we've been doing, you know, for the last 4 months.
Yeah. And starting with 100 orders a day, 1,000 orders a day, you know, thousands of orders a day. So that's one good thing about a 3PL too. When you have multiple nodes, you can scale easily. It's really important. Okay, cool. So medical device. All fulfillment is hard. Let's be real. Even just throwing a t-shirt in a bag, like you have to make sure it gets to the right person. It has to meet SLAs. What carrier are you using? Are you charging the right amount of money to your customer, if anything? There's a lot of complexity around simple fulfillment, what we'll call. Can you talk about some of the similarities that you've had if you're just putting a t-shirt in a bag versus, you know, what you're doing with Daybreak? Like when it has to be medical device, like some of the things you started to sweat. Yeah.
I mean, there's certain things that, you know, have disrupted the space across supply chain and kind of fulfillment. And obviously, you know, everybody is held to that standard. It's on the board, Amazon, and end users don't care, you know, what you're doing in the background. They care about getting support and getting it fast, whether it's a product or whether it's a service. And I think, especially with people that are sharing sensitive information with us, you know, in the medical space, their health and their snoring activities and their breathing, you know, throughout the night, it was really important for them, if they get diagnosed, that they get support really quickly, because they're like, okay, now I have this big problem. How do I get supported? And so now that we've explained and we have a physician network that kind of tells them like, yeah, you have sleep apnea and it is potentially life-threatening, you need to get supported. We want to be able to be like, we can turn that around really quickly for you. And so just as any other product, you know, even more so, it's important because there's like almost like a sense of urgency. There's a time constraint where I'm sick and I'm dying every night and I don't want to die. And so we've had people say, I don't want to die. Am I going to die tonight? So it's like, it's kind of like, you know, it's very impactful for you. It's palpable.
Of course, because every time you go to sleep now, it's like you're sleeping on a grenade.
Yeah.
But you are the grenade. You're worried that like, are you going to make it through? It's something you never thought about before, but you're also empowering them to be like, I can change this.
We can help you.
This can be solved. This is a very solvable problem. So again, FDA certification was a big piece to this. What other warehouses, like one of the things that I think we should touch on a little bit was you originally have your own warehouses, right? We're in Oklahoma. So maybe talk about how we intertwine our warehouses, the LVK warehouses, with your like lightweight manufacturing warehouses. How would you describe that?
Yeah, so I think we did similar things at both companies. So at Byte as well as at my new company Daybreak. You know, when you're, especially at Byte, when you're small, you think you could kind of do it all, and then you very quickly get to a point where this doesn't make sense for me anymore because my core competency is not doing fulfillment. And we wanted to hand that off to professionals because it is something that kept me up at night when I was at Byte. And I thought about it regularly, and you had people, you know, is a lot of people management, is a lot of rigor that's involved with getting the rates and, you know, getting proper SLAs and visibility into data is really key. And so, you know, as much as we could, we transitioned that very quickly into fulfillment with LVK at Byte. At Daybreak, what's, you know, really nice about working with you guys is there are certain things that you guys do phenomenally well, and we leverage that in like at scale. And there's certain things like creating a medical device that our partner in Oklahoma needs to do. Yep. And they do that. And they have to have a 510K specific clearance for a medical grade device. And so we allow them to do like some of the low volume or custom work. And then you guys have the flexibility where we're actually leveraging LVK for more of the scale and broad strokes kind of inventory management and fulfillment.
And I think this is such a good case study because so many people think that you have to go to one vendor to do everything. And that's usually not a good fit because we all know how long it takes to get integrated with NetSuite and all of these things. It's okay to have a tech stack and use multiple vendors. One, redundancy is always good. And two, I think I just want to double click on what Manny said, this idea of everyone should lean into what they're really good at because these are specialty functions. So I think that's a great piece of advice. So let's talk a little bit, like I'll do a quick overview of this standard customer journey. All right. If you're selling t-shirts, you're selling widgets, a couple of our customers are heavy into toys and into pet foods and pet kind of supplies. It's pretty straightforward. It's an Instagram ad. It's another Instagram ad. Maybe it's something on TikTok. We've just finished our full native integration with TikTok. There's a few impressions that they get, they click through, and then if they don't buy the first time, you send them a discount and then they buy. It's a pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward. I'm a victim of this. I'm sure anyone who uses social media is a victim. We're all consumers. It's pretty straightforward. But let's go into the Daybreak customer journey.
Right.
And kind of like how you think through this, because I think brands of all sizes and segments can learn something from this because it's intense.
Yeah, it's a pretty complex value chain. And again, I think it's, as you think about your business, you build a moat. You try to, at least, with, you know, some of the components of your business, and then you double click into core competencies that you have, make sure that you know where your skill set lies, and then kind of leave it up to others to fill in the gaps where it's like, hey, you guys do this really well. We're going to let you guys handle that because ultimately it's going to lead to a great customer experience. And so our starts off with the at-home sleep lab. So much like the channels, you mentioned some of the social channels that are used in marketing. Folks come to our website because they suspect maybe they have sleep apnea or they have snoring or their partner does. Oftentimes it's their partner. And we have fulfillment done through you guys, really quick fulfillment, which is great. And they get an at-home sleep test. And then we have a physicians network across all 50 states that will review your sleep test once you have taken it and decide on, provide you guidance. You have sleep apnea or you don't, and what's the prognosis, mild, moderate, severe. That we then have a team that reviews that treatment with you and gives you kind of options. Hey, this is what you have. This is what you're dealing with, and we can take care of you from there. Our product is a custom oral appliance because we're very familiar with the oral space and oral appliances from Byte. So we brought a lot of that rigor over to Daybreak. And one thing that we do unique with LVK is impression kits. And so that was a key unlock, I would say, for both Byte as well as for Daybreak, where we sent an impression kit. You guys created a really nice custom like shipment for us where we get those back really quickly. You can think about conversion, and it allows us to very seamlessly send a custom made device from our lab in Oklahoma. So ultimately we get a custom fit device, really nicely packaged, delivered to patients.
And what's really cool about this, during the pack out process, when we send out that initial test, we also include a USPS pay on scan envelope with the correct label on top of it. So we make it really frictionless. And we worked in conjunction together to make this happen, because there's little things of how do you fold the envelope so that the ink doesn't rub off? I think we remember that.
Yes.
The ink scandal of 2019. This idea, though, that all these little things that make it easier for people, if they have to go get their own poly mailer, print out a label, like that friction, like you could automatically see that the conversion rate went down when we didn't have that envelope in there.
It was a step function, like magnitude revenue multiples, millions of dollars of revenue that resulted from working with you guys, identifying how we could improve the conversion rate with those pre-packed mailers that have the labels on them. And it sounds like a really small thing, but it increased our conversion rate like by 5%, and even a 0.1% increase led to like $4 million per year. So you can imagine like how impactful that was for the business. And then ultimately, again, at Byte, we ended up selling for $1 billion to Dentsply Sirona. So it led to great success for our business at the time.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They're still with us, even though they were bought by a large company that has warehouses, because of that pack out function is really difficult, but also exposing the webhooks for being able to pass back to tracking, not to get like too in the weeds. But a lot of times, most 3PLs with their WMS cannot pass back multiple tracking numbers and expose that webhook. So that was like an unlock as well for your sales team.
Paramount importance, because having the open API that you guys have in the tech stack where we can get as much data as we want or as little data as we want is important, because not just, are they packing the prepackaged envelopes with the USPS tracking, but our scanning facility that actually uploads the digital impression or creates digital impressions from those molds uses that to identify patients, because again, we don't want to provide any more, HIPAA data than we have to. And so being able to do that in a really seamless way was like a huge unlock.
It's huge. And then also getting text messages to be able to say like, hey, we know that you've gotten the test. Have you used it yet? Like, we're waiting to hear from you. Like, they've built in some really good rigor around that data that we've provided. So it's awesome to see. And it's great to see kind of like all the learning from the first time around. Okay. So let's talk about, I always like to say, I don't know if there's any golfers in the room, but fulfillment is like golf. It is not a game of perfect. You try to keep it down the middle, not make any big numbers. And then when you make a mistake, you have to go to your brands and say like, hey, this is where things went wrong. How do we fix this? A missed bulk ship is, for example, there's things that happen. So talk to me a little bit, Manny, like when something goes wrong and kind of like this top of funnel and how you adjust SLAs, like how do you conceptualize this? How do you tell your team to like think about this and kind of fix things on the fly?
Yeah, we prioritize top of funnel.
Okay.
That's why we've worked with you guys so closely to make sure that, when they have an intent to purchase and they wait 7 or 8 or 9 days to get a product, it's killer. It kills conversion, it kills deals. And so, you have to be stringent on certain parts of the funnel where you want to provide that level of experience. And then once you have the customer, to a point where they're making a purchase, you could then, use customer experience, because producing a custom built product takes some time. And so that's where it's like SLA is important, but we also want to make sure that the quality of the device is there. And so we are a little less stringent on, making the device than we are actually on fulfilling sleep test orders or impression kit orders, and then actually sending out the device. But like making the device, we're a little less stringent on that. Typically they've already also paid, or their insurance is already paid. And so we leverage our customer experience team to make sure that they're kept in the loop. Because as long as you communicate to customers or to patients, they're happy. As long as you're proactive and you think about, using all of the data integrations that you have to know where they are, they're not going to be in a bad situation.
Yeah, I think it's always coming down to just visibility for your team to be able to then make those touch points throughout to make those adjustments. I think is super important. And again, I just want to stress on that first piece though. That's where there can be no waiting. If an order comes in before noon, it is going out. Like it has to go out ASAP. because like that's when people are excited about it. Like
Totally.
once they do the impression kit, like you said, they're already in. Like they're bought in at that
They're
point.
bought in. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
They're totally bought in. I wish I had some water for you, Manny. Do you want
Let's take a sip. Yeah.
See, this is what 5 years.
I don't talk this much.
Yeah, 5 years of partnership does. Okay, so all right. So learnings. I think getting in, we kind of touched on it earlier, but this idea of what do you hire for? Because you'll start a team, like you're like the first hire always. And, oh, there's some water too. There's people that you're like, we have to hire for this. We have to build out this network. Like what doctors are going to be in. Like there's certain people that you just have to have, and then what to outsource. So can we talk about kind of like the first 90 days of starting Daybreak? Who do you hire versus what do you know that you're going to outsource later? Like I think thinking about it like in tranches.
Yeah. I mean, I think for any business, you always have to think about tech. If you don't have a tech enabled founder, that's like incredibly key because everything is unlocked via tech. And then you think about somebody that's going to be able to do operations, which is me, and kind of tie everything together. And then our product's medical. So thinking about, okay, like what is involved in the R&D or the build out of your product, and not just today, but like 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, because you need innovation along the way to be able to like maintain relevancy. And certainly like if you're doing something nuanced, competitors are going to come in at some point. So no matter how much of a moat you build, there's always going to be people coming. And then for fulfillment, we know like that's not our strong suit. Like we let the professionals do that.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because so many people will try to bite off things because you're an operations person too. I almost feel like fulfillment would be easy for you, but you're like, let me go solve the really hard problems that we need to solve as a company.
That's it.
That's it.
That's exactly it. It's like you have complex problems, solve those problems.
Yeah.
Like everything else, like you shouldn't be losing sleep. I shouldn't be spending my mind share or my like strategy. Any of my team should not be thinking about like, did this order go out? Do we have enough inventory? Like, you know, our SLA is good. Like that is just something that we're not worried about. We're worried about like our customer experience on the product side. And then how are we innovating our product to make sure it's like a great product?
Totally. And I think we see it. So at LVK, we've shipped over 25 million packages, 1.5 billion in revenue. Like we see a lot of different brands, and you can start to see brands sputter out when their founders start getting too in the weeds around operations instead of just selling the product. Because they feel like they have out-marketed themselves. Like they don't know what else to do to like get those next sales in. So they start to cut and they start to try to like trim a penny here and a penny there instead of go get those dollars. And we always try to say like, focus on getting those net new dollars versus trying to save that, set up your own warehouse. Because you can definitely set up your own warehouse, but it's a lot of expense.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's so much work. And like, not only that, but like we've done our own warehouses and we just didn't provide the same level of experience and SLA that we've experienced with LVK. And it's just not even comparable. And it's like, I don't have to lose sleep over it at night because someone's calling out sick, or like I have a forklift that went down, or just shipping didn't get in time. It's just like so many things.
Manny, you just talked about my whole morning. That's a
like I'll let Maggie lose sleep over that. I don't want to lose sleep over that stuff.
That's what we lose sleep over at LVK. So I do want to talk about being able to scale quickly when something pops off. I can't remember what celebrity it was with Byte, but I feel like someone mentioned something in like Us Weekly. Like you guys had this ability to like, let's say you're doing 500 orders a day, but a celebrity would say, hey, I'm using Byte, or now like an influencer, and it would 4 or 5x the next day.
Yeah, we had a huge influencer base. We had Dr. Marashi was like one of the head like celebrity clinicians at the time. And really it was a great business case because COVID came and supercharged our industry. And so we went from looking at a 5-year runway to pulling that year 5 into year 1. And so to give context at Byte, again, we did about 8 to 10 million. It was like our second year-ish in 2019. And then in 2020, we did 150 million. So you can imagine doing a 10X on what that scale looks like and how fast you have to move. And I think having, the ability to scale really quickly with the velocity that we did with the partnership with Maggie during a really crazy time with COVID was like she was stressed, but like she held it together and held it down for the business. And that's what ultimately led to, our successful exit and a lot of people, being taken care of. And so it was a great customer experience. And had we not had a great partner to scale, we wouldn't have been able to capture all of those potential customers. We had another competitor in the space, wasn't able to scale. And I mean, they're now bankrupt. Like, to be frank, it kills businesses.
Yeah. And I think, again, the redundancy with multiple buildings, like when you're looking at a 3PL and they might only have 1 or 2 buildings, one, you can't get ground shipping fast enough. And if people care about the environment, you should be keeping everything on the ground, that, way less carbon, but still get really fast service. So I think there's a lot of things that you should be looking at as a brand, like how quickly can you get that product in their hand when they're excited about it? Because I know...
Yeah, you want to. Yeah, it's a deal killer, and also you want to cover, like you said, the coast. Like you want to have something on the East Coast, you want to have something on the West Coast, because that's typically where you're going to have most of your customers. And then you think about redundancy. You've mentioned this a couple times. Like, look what's happening to Florida. Like, there's a scanning facility that we have in Florida, and if you didn't have redundancy, like they're getting hit in Sarasota right now. They're shut down. And so if you don't have redundancy in your business for things that matter, you're not going to be able to continue.
Exactly. I think after COVID, everyone realized you need multiple nodes. Like, there's special cases where you only want one warehouse, like, over 5,000 SKUs, something like that. Usually put it right in the middle of the country. But with that, that there's going to be days where you're down and you just, like, if there's an ice storm, like even if you have a backup generator, you lose 4 hours, you're behind. Like there's some use cases where it's fine, but I think having the multiple locations is key. And I know it keeps me, I get a little bit more sleep at night knowing that, like, if for some reason something happens in a location, most of our customers are across multiple, so that it's fine. We can always like make up for that extra time. So.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, anybody been through a tornado? I moved to Oklahoma for 6 months and was setting up our dental facility. I didn't know what tornadoes were. And I was like, moved there during peak tornado season. And I was like, what is going on out here? And the tornado hit as soon as I landed. And I was like, this is so sweet,
And they're used to it.
They're used to it. They're like, welcome aboard, brother. And I'm like, all right.
You have your tornado stripes now.
Right. Yeah. So I made it through.
That's coming from California. You've got your earthquake,
tornado. Well, I got to get my hurricane stripes, I guess.
I guess so. Like it's a lot. So Manny, when you think about your journey over the last 5-6 years, you scaled a company, big exit. Like that was the way that you guys sold that and worked through all of those issues was amazing because it was competitive at the time. Like you had 2 or 3 people kind of like right at your heels the whole time. You guys broke out and made it happen. You start this company. What was like the first, did you take a break in between both?
No, it was.
I feel like
I'm like a all go kind of guy.
You're all in. Okay. So what did you think when you're like, okay, we're doing this? Like you work with like Wesley, someone else on the team. Like, what did you guys say? Like, you know what, we're going to do different this time?
Yeah, I think at Byte, we had started our own warehouse in a couple different areas. Like we started top of funnel. We also started it towards the end of funnel. And we were like, let's not do that again. Let's partner and, build automation where we can and have somebody do fulfillment for us, which is why we, obviously reached out to you. And then we just knew so much more about the tech stack to be able to provide like very granular SLAs, which is like, again, the open API situation that you guys have is phenomenal. And so every part of the funnel, I know what the average SLA is, which is really important for our journey because it's, again, a pretty complex value chain. And so then we have reports that show outliers where it's like, okay, this person's been waiting for 4 days in this area. What's going on?
Yep.
And sometimes it's internal stuff. Sometimes it's customer stuff. Never is it the fulfillment side, which is great because you guys have that dialed in. Yeah. And it's like always something that, we need to do internally. And so I think, so to recap, not doing our own warehouses because that was just like, that's not what we're looking to do. And then 2 was providing really quickly all the visibility for the SLAs in each part of the funnel.
And I think that, like, what do they say? You can't perfect something you can't measure.
Right.
Like you need to be able to measure it to get it better. Like you have to be able to do that. And I think that's what we've tried to do with the open API is because everyone will find value in something different. So that leads me to tech stack. Like we have our integration with NetSuite. We have, Salesforce. We have all of these different, like, how do you guys approach that? And did you start like right away with the Salesforce, or are you still in Salesforce with Daybreak? Yeah,
so we use Salesforce. I've used HubSpot. I've used a few different CRMs, and I think being able to have a source of truth for as much as you can. We use Salesforce for pretty much everything. We get pretty crafty with the custom objects that we create, and with all of the data we're able to pull from our vendors. Again, with LVK, we find places that make sense to fill the fields and. I think, we try to make it really easy for our frontline folks. We have, a sales team, we have CX team, we have a clinical team, we have physicians network. All of them are working off of a single platform. And it makes it really easy for them to, to get trained, honestly, and get onboarded. And so it's kind of like the speed and velocity of which we're moving. We want to be able to, like, everybody to have experience with different parts of the journey, because it's important that they don't have to jump through 4 or 5 different components. But being able to pull all that data in from external vendors that we do partner with, and everybody has to have some form of vendors like LVK and some other softwares that we use, that still gets ingested by Salesforce. That's why it's really important for that open API to work.
That's fantastic. So speed round of questions. I'm just making this up right now, so this is new for Manny. Okay.
Let's do it.
If you could do anything besides work on Daybreak, what would it be?
That's great. Anything besides work on Daybreak.
And besides work at LVK, obviously. It's always number 2.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. I probably would start my own nonprofit. I do a lot of nonprofit work. And I've built a few houses in Mexico and stuff with a few different nonprofit groups. I think that we're so fortunate in the US, in certain areas to like be able to live a certain way. And I think there's a lot of people that need help out there, and I really enjoy doing that. So I'd probably scale, and I will eventually scale a nonprofit.
I love that. What keeps you up at night with Daybreak?
Right now, it's the devices being able to be comfortable and fit with patients. And so that's where we're really spending a lot of time on R&D. We're actually doing a lot of cool things in the direct print side of, I didn't have a lot of experience with 3D printing, and now I do. And so our lab in Oklahoma, which is why I've spent a lot of time out there, they're doing some really cool work with direct print devices, which is insane that you can directly print material into a custom fit device. And so, so I guess it's mostly making sure that device is fit for people. And it's, we have a great experienced team, and we make sure that if they don't fit, we get them a device really quickly, but then also all the innovation that's happening on the backside of that.
I love that. What are you most proud of at Byte or at Daybreak?
I think for me, so I moved to Oklahoma 6 months ago, and I was there for 6 months. So most proud about building out that production and being able to do something that I wasn't necessarily familiar with. I think when you're flexing a new muscle, and if you're not like challenging yourself, you're not growing. And so for me, it was like getting out of, I live in Santa Monica. And so moving to a very unfamiliar place, getting, on the ground floor and doing R&D and being in a dental lab that's 510K approved and working with clinicians and dental professionals, and kind of getting the entire, like, we wouldn't have launched had I not kind of been out there and moved the needle forward. Oftentimes it's really just ensuring that people are held accountable, and, physicians and dentists, they're really hard to tackle sometimes. They're just very busy people, and they have short attention spans. And so I think I'm most proud of being able to do that, and, walk away from it and say, okay, this is ready for another person to take over. Cause I like to solve complex challenges and then hand it off and train somebody and say, okay, you're good to go. We'll continue to innovate. But like, for the most part, like, we can actually launch and go live, which that was, again, one of the things that was preventing us from going live was that component.
I love that. In Santa Monica to Oklahoma, that's a real move.
It was a change. It was a change,
So last quick fire, because it's Oklahoma, what was your go-to Chili's order? Because there's not a lot of restaurants in Oklahoma. Where you were.
Yeah, I was the chips and salsa always get me because it's actually pretty decent, and it's cheap and it's bottomless. And then I'm a Cajun pasta kind of guy, so that was my go-to.
Excellent. All right, we talked a little bit about the tech stack and that struggles. We did a rapid fire. Is there any tech you wish you had right now?
I think there's some components in the 3D print world that we'd like to have that we're actually going to be building out. And so, I mean, if you're working at a startup or any company that likes to increase productivity or improve on what the status quo is, which I've experienced at bigger enterprise companies, sometimes that's not the case, and people are just like very okay with how it is. This is how we always do it. I'm very much not okay with that, and so. I think for me, it's we'd like to build some additional API integrations into our dental lab and make it I want to get a redundancy on the dental lab as well. So we have a partner that we're looking to actually make the custom fit device that has like the 510K certifications. It's overseen by clinicians. And so that's kind of the next thing that I want to get live is that component.
That's exciting. That's very exciting stuff. And Manny, I think when it comes down to your growth and, the next companies that you'll start, do you think you'll stay in medical device now that you've had all this? Like when it comes to your for-profit ventures, like you have so much experience in it.
It's a lot. And it's definitely open-ended because I think what I enjoy about medical products is like, you're actually changing people's lives. We get people all the time on the back end, and we don't just like send them a device and say you're good to go. We like have a peer-to-peer relationship with these people and make sure that like all of their vitals are going in the right direction. So we actually have a sleep test that like, you have your device now. Okay, let's test your night of sleep and make sure like your oxygen levels are good. It's called AHI. So how many breathing occurrences you have every night. And so people will call us and like leave comments and say like, you changed my life materially. Like I have energy to like hang with my kids throughout the day. I'm a different person. Or like I went to the interview and I hadn't been able to keep a job because I'd kept falling asleep, and now I'm like fully employed. And so it's just really gratifying to be in the medical space where you're making a difference. And so I like, whether it's in the medical space or other, I think it's just really cool to be able to like say I added something to society that was like beneficial.
Absolutely. And I love that. And I have my VP and GM, Scott, here. So like I said, Scott, you just joined us, but this is one of our customers where we actually do save lives. So it really feels nice to make a difference. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments, but Manny, this has been awesome. It's been so nice. This is our first time face-to-face after 5 years.
I know, it's been too long. And that's why I said I waited 5 years for this. So it's been great.
So it's awesome. Are there any questions? I can see a lot of people thinking. Well, we hope you enjoyed this. This was awesome, Manny. Thank you so much.
It was great.
It was awesome.
Yep.
And if there's any questions afterwards, we have a booth. We also, at 1 o'clock, get a little food in your stomach. We have mocktails and mimosas at the LVK and Ship Hero booth. For those of you who don't know, LVK is a wholly owned subsidiary of Ship Hero WMS. Ship Hero WMS is a best-in-class WMS. We have customers like Canadian Tire, Giant Tiger, Universal Music Group. So if you need a WMS, that's the place to go. I only trust my 3PL with it. So it's excellent. All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you.